Today, we also observe the somber anniversary of 9/11. We remember those whose lives were lost. We salute those who rushed toward danger, sacrificing themselves to save others. After that attack, our country rallied together to meet a common challenge. We need that spirit of unity today to meet huge challenges here at home and around the world. One of those is the conflict in the Middle East, including the horrific humanitarian disaster in Gaza today. Senator Merkley and I have been clear and unwavering in our position from the start that Israel has the right and the duty to defend its people after the horrific terror attacks by Hamas on October 7th. But from our trip, from our observations, from our firsthand accounts, it's clear that the Netanyahu government has gone far beyond targeting Hamas to imposing collective punishment on all the people of Gaza. The title of our report is "The Netanyahu Government is Implementing a Plan to Ethnically Cleanse Gaza of Palestinians. America is complicit. The world must stop it." The Netanyahu government has not kept its goals secret. And we start in this report by quoting members of the Netanyahu government, including Prime Minister Netanyahu himself, who has said that one of their war aims is the removal of the Palestinian population from Gaza. I urge all of you to read those quotes, because what now they're doing and what we witnessed is putting those goals into action in Gaza. We visited the Egyptian-Gaza border, and Senator Merkley and I had been there back in January 2024. And at that time, on the Gazan side of the border, was the thriving Palestinian town of Rafah. This time, when we went to that border, we were able to climb up a taller building and actually look directly into Gaza. And what we saw with respect to Rafah was rubble. And you can see from this photo that Senator Merkley took that you could see it with your naked eye. And when you got your binoculars, you could see the city of Rafah, which had been home to about 210,000 people, Palestinians, reduced to rubble. We also met with some very courageous souls, people with true moral courage, people who had served in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, and served in Gaza, who told us that they had been part of this systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure. Our report goes into some of the figures, but just for example, 90% of the homes in Gaza have been destroyed or severely damaged. And in our interviews and through our observations, it was clear that the Netanyahu government is also restricting the delivery of humanitarian assistance into Gaza, including using food as a weapon of war. I'm going to briefly summarize some of our findings. I urge you to look at the details in the report with respect to restricting food getting into Gaza, and then Senator Merkley will talk about the challenges of getting that food distributed within Gaza to people who are starving there as we speak. If you look at our table of contents, and we've just passed out the report to many of you, we break the restrictions on food into Gaza into a number of parts. I'm just going to read them and not go into great detail, but I think it's important to understand the level of specifics in this report. We start with the 78-day total blockade of food and humanitarian assistance to Gaza that ran from March 2nd to May 19th. And as a result of that, you had a huge amount of people starving to death in Gaza. One of the things we heard loud and clear is, in order to address that problem right now, is to open more crossings into Gaza. There are two that are regularly open, Kerem Shalom, which we visited, and Zakim. There are two others that the international organizations have pushed to have open as regular crossings, not sporadic crossings, in order to get more food into Gaza. That has not happened yet. There are, in addition, the advent of this so-called Gaza Humanitarian Initiative. And Senator Merkley will speak more to this. This is when, after that total siege on food, the blockade on food, instead of reopening the normal UN delivery system, they moved toward this system with private contractors, private security folks, opened just 4 sites for 2 million people, 3 of them in southern Gaza, none of them in the north, clearly designed to use food as a method of population control as they try to push the Palestinian population out of northern Gaza. And of course, we're witnessing right now the military operation there. We also point out deliberate obstacles at the Israeli port of Ashdod, the deluge, the just mountain of unnecessary requirements and red tape that slow down the delivery of food into Gaza, the failure to protect convoys along what's called the Jordan corridor. There are a couple major corridors for getting food in. One is through Jordan, and we go through in great detail all the restrictions put on getting food in through that corridor. Another, of course, is the Egyptian corridor through Rafah, and that goes through Kerem Shalom. Huge restrictions there as well. No clear list of banned and dual-use items. So, for example, when we spoke to the Jordanians, they said you can never predict what would be denied entry. And they had just learned, for example, that peanut butter and honey and dates could no longer be part of a convoy. And when a truck is turned around for one item that is restricted, they have to turn the whole truck around. And you'll see a great amount in this report about the detail of the huge amount of very deliberate red tape intended to restrict the flow of humanitarian aid and food. I will just highlight one example. It was one of our early stops at the port of Ashdod. This is a port, Israeli port north of Gaza, and it's the sort of receiving point for the World Food Program of food that's offloaded to be distributed to Gaza. They told us very clearly that because of unnecessary restrictions that have been recently imposed since the end of the blockade, 2,200 shipping containers worth of food were being unnecessarily blocked right there. Enough food to feed everyone in Gaza for 3 weeks. That is just one example, but it's part of the larger theme that we heard throughout about deliberate obstacles placed in the way of getting food to people in Gaza.